All right, guys, today we're going to take a closer look at the exclusive seller listing agreement. This is how someone hires you to sell their home. So jumping right in, we're going to pull up the document, and this form is one of your GAR forms. This is, in case you're curious about the number, F101. So there are two ways someone can hire you to represent them as a seller. One of those is going to be the exclusive listing agreement. This is your typical way of getting hired. If you are working with a for sale by owner and you're working with them as a customer, you're going to use the authorization to show unlisted property. But today we're focused on the exclusive seller listing agreement. So I'm going to go ahead and start right in with the address right here. Okay, this is going to be the mailing address, the city, the county, and the zip code. The tax parcel ID number, you're going to find that at CRS Tax Suite or Realist. So CRS Tax Suite is in Georgia MLS, Realist is in FMLS. The hardest part of the contract is the legal description. So we're going to spend a minute here. So these are written in the order of preference. Okay. So our best legal description is attached as an exhibit here too. That would be a copy of the deed that you would get from the seller, or if you have an attorney friend, they will pull and print the deed for you and you can use that. Okay. Most sellers are not going to have their deed handy to give you a copy of it. So more than likely, you're going to be using option number 2, which is the deed book and page. Okay, deed book and page is different than plat book and page. Deed book is what every time there's a sale of the property, the deed gets re-recorded. Okay, so there are lots of deed book and pages. Every time there was a change in ownership, there was a new deed filed, and there's going to be a new deed book and page. So the easiest way to find this, my standard way of doing it, I go to CRS Tax Suite or to Realist. I look at the most recent sale of the property, and I see what deed book and page was that deed recorded at. Very simple thing to do. So you can do this in a minute and a half. You're going to do that on almost every transaction, deed book and page. The next legal description is a much longer description. It's the land lot of the tax district in this section, the lot number, block, the unit, the phase of the subdivision, and the plat book and plat page number. That's a lot of information to chase down, and in order for that to be a legal description, there's 4 pieces of information you have to have, because the plat book is a map. Here's a map of plats. This is all the different properties on this particular page. So I need the plat book and page to get me to the right map. Then I need to know what subdivision to look in. So I have to have the subdivision. And then I need to know the lot number inside that subdivision. Don't have to have the other pieces in there, but I do have to have the lot, the subdivision, the plat book, and the plat page. And this is very difficult to find. Most properties don't have this recorded in CRS Tax Suite or Realist. So you're going to struggle to complete this definition. So my recommendation is just skip that one. Do the deed book and page. You're going to find that very rarely are you not going to be able to find the deed book and page for a property. Okay. And then the last one is only if it's a condominium. And I encourage you to skip this one too, because condominium is a type of ownership. For a condominium, you own your unit and you own a share of the common area. So that gets recorded in 2 different plat books. So I have to have the unit number, the condominium association, the lot, and the deed book and page for the common area. And then I have to have the book and page for my particular property. So again, very complex to have that. If you have a condominium that you are selling, my recommendation is go find your attorney friend, get them to print you a copy of the deed, and always use the deed when you're doing a condominium. Okay, so make sure you check the checkbox. If you do not check the checkbox, it is not part of the contract. One of the most common areas we see on all of our agreements is agents forget to mark the checkboxes. So then our listing period is going to start today, and it's going to last through however long our listing period is going to be. Okay, in a typical market, I would recommend looking at least 6 months for your time period. Today we're in a market that's moving very quickly. So if we can take a 3-month listing period, I'm happy with that. I'm going to take that. And in certain cases, if I feel confident that a property is going to move fast, I might even take a 30-day listing just to get that listing and get it out there, and all the marketing that goes on around that to help me promote and build my business. And I have a good likelihood of selling that house. The list price of all the things on this contract, that is the only thing that you will not know before your listing appointment. So you should be able to fill this whole thing out before you go to your listing appointment, and the only thing you're leaving blank is the list price. Okay, we're always going to mark that the seller does authorize us to assist in writing their contracts. We market the property on Georgia MLS, FMLS, and KWLS. And then in page 6, this is the most common error that we see on a contract, is we're so used to thinking 3% and 3%, that the seller is going to pay 3% to one broker and 3% to the other broker. That's not the way this document is set up. Okay, all commissions from the seller are paid to the listing broker. So very often we're going to have 6% right here, and then the listing broker, us in this case, we're agreeing to pay the broker that brings a buyer 3%. Okay, now commissions are not fixed. Commissions are whatever you negotiate. What are you willing to work for? So we like seeing 6 and 3 here, but it's up to you to figure out what it is that you're willing to do. My recommendation is, even if you're going to discount your commission, and before you do that, talk to your broker, talk to your coach. But if you're discounting the commission, so let's say you were doing 5% for someone, that we're still going to offer 3% to the agent that brings the buyer. We want to incentivize the agents out there to prioritize our property. They shouldn't. The buyer's agent should show the property regardless of the commission is, because their commission should be protected by their buyer's brokerage agreement. But again, the better we offer here, the more likely we are to have the traffic that we want. So we've got 3 options under each of these. Are we asking for a percentage? Are we asking for a flat rate? Or is there a longer description that's necessary? The majority of the time, you're going to check the first box, 6%, the second box, 3%. Then what's our protected period? The length of the protected period, that's if this contract ends, our listing agreement ends, but one of the buyers that was procured, potential buyers, during our listing period ends up buying the property, we're still going to get paid for this amount of time. Okay, so someone comes to see the property a week before closing, or a week before our listing agreement ends, and they decide 10 days later, after our agreement has expired, to make an offer on the property. We will still be the agent representing the seller in that transaction, because we are protected for a period of 90 days. Paragraph 8, you are an independent contractor of the broker, not an employee of the broker. So we're going to mark independent contractor. And then the next most common error that we see is a listing agreement. So people come down here and instinctively mark seller agency. That is not what the sentence above it says. It says the following are types of agency relationships not offered by the broker. Keller Williams Atlanta Partners does not offer dual agency, and we do not offer sub-agency. So those are the two boxes that you're going to check here. Okay. And paragraph 10 on the second page, these are boxes that only get checked if there are special situations around the listing agreement. Is the seller currently in bankruptcy, or are they currently going through a divorce where the sale of our property may be subject to a third party? Same thing here, bankruptcy and divorce and short sale. Are we potentially selling the property for less than the amount that's owed on the property to the first mortgage? If that's the case, we're going to need bank approval in order to sell it. And then lastly, the seller's not on the title. Okay. The title's in the process of being transferred to them. They're under contract to acquire the property, and they've started marketing the property for sale, intending to close with us after the sale of the property. Well, they are not on the title. And so it's saying the seller does not have title of the property, and the purchase of this agreement for the property will or will not be subject to the seller acquiring title of the property. My strongest recommendation, if that's the case, it will be contingent on them getting the title. They cannot sell it if they are not on title. The next several pages are all legalese. These are all descriptions explaining what was on the first pages. That is our section B. Section C is additional legalese that doesn't relate back to the first page, but it's additional information about about our contract. And my recommendation is you go through this document and you read it line by line, every single paragraph, and make sure you fully understand every single paragraph, because you are going to have that client that does the same thing. They're going to read every paragraph and they're going to ask you, okay, in section C, paragraph 8, what does this mean? Okay, you want to be prepared to answer that question. Lastly, we get down to brochures and exhibits. You're typically not going to have any exhibits or brochures unless you want to. You don't have to. I will share these more often during the contract, but for your listings, you may want to share this protect yourself when selling a home. That's a really important one. And if you're working with a short sale, what buyers and sellers should know about short sales and distressed properties. But there's no requirement that you have to share these. And you can still share these even if you don't check the boxes. Okay. And then under exhibits, really the only exhibit that you're ever going to have done here would be the legal description. If you didn't use deed book and page, and you marked box number 1 on the first page that you are attaching the legal description, then you will mark the legal description as attached. You will give it an exhibit letter, and then on that printed copy of the deed, you will write Exhibit A in this case. So a capital A would go between the quotation marks. Not often that you will have special stipulations, but an example of a special stipulation may be that your price recommendation to the seller was that you feel like $250 is the right list price, and they had asked you, well, what do you think about $260? Could we try $260? Well, you may agree with them that we can test the market at $260, but let's go ahead and agree that if we're not under contract within 2 weeks, that we're going to reduce the price to $250. Well, I can go ahead and put that in here in my special stipulation. You know, if property is not under contract by this date, price will be reduced to $250,000. Okay, that way we don't have to go back and get written permission later to make a change to the price. It's already taken care of in our listing agreement. Then we get to our signature page. Again, this is a brokerage contract. This is the seller hiring us as a broker. So we as a broker need to know how to get hold of the client. It's the old hit by a bus rule. If you disappear and are no longer around taking care of your client in the transaction, we as the broker still have a fiduciary obligation to them. So we need to know how to get hold of them. So this whole section has to be filled out. Their name, their address, their phone number, their email. And then you want your complete information in here. Your listing broker, your name, your phone number, your email address, your license number, which board you belong to. So NAMAR, WBBOR, DeKalb Board of Realtors, your MLS office code for us here in Snellville, KWRS02. Our brokerage firm license number is H-46676. Our broker phone number and our broker address. The two things that I do not want you filling out on here, though, is don't put the fax numbers in here. You do not want anyone attempting to fax you, because once we receive a fax, it is assumed that you have it, and unless you are looking at a fax machine every day, you're not going to know that you got a fax in. So I'm hoping that in the very near future, this will be removed from all of our contracts. Okay. In the last box, receipt of a copy of this agreement is hereby acknowledged by the seller. So right before you send a signed copy to your seller, or once your seller has signed, complete this box and send a copy back to them with that box filled out. And it just has a time and a date on it. And guys, that's it. Again, this is something you can completely fill out before you go and meet with your client. The address of the property is not going to change. The legal description is not going to change. The 6 months that you intend to list the properties, not going to change. The fact that they're going to let you fill out a contract, where you list the property, the commissions that you expect to get paid, your protected period, your relationship with a broker, and the types of agency we as a broker don't offer, all are constant. So we can fill everything out here except for the list price. So have this pre-filled out before you go to your listing appointments, so that it is really easy and really simple for you just to turn the document around, fill out the list price, put it in front of your client for them to sign, and they don't have to sit and wait for you to fill one of these out. You don't have to go back to the office, fill it out at a later date, and then send it back to them for signature. Take care of it all right there at the kitchen table while you're meeting with them. Hope that's helpful. There is a cheat sheet for this also in the coaching resource folder. So check that out and let me know if you've got any questions. Have a great day.